So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the official launch of Perinatal Mental Health Week for 2023 here at Parliament House in Canberra. I would like to welcome all of you in the room today, and as well as the many people joining us today virtually. Thank you. My name's Bridget Glanville and I work in corporate communications. Before that, I worked for a number of former ministers in the New South Wales government, so a different parliament, the parliament in Sydney. Prior to that, I spent a long section of my career, about 20 years, as a reporter and presenter at ABC. But most importantly, I'm proudly a Gidget Foundation ambassador. And to commence our event today, I would like to invite to the stage Ngunnawal woman Serena Williams, and there's also going to be a very special guest appearance on video for our Welcome to Country.
Before I do go ahead and do the Welcome to Country, I've got my daughter, Maggie Knight Williams, who's going to speak some Ngunnawal language and reply that back into English to acknowledge what I'm doing up here. And I'd also like to introduce my oldest brother, William Tompkins, who's come here to support us in our cultural business.
Yomma, tarawa nuna tarawa Ngunnawal, yangu narwari, durman min Ngunnawal wari, ningaraendi Ngunnawal bun tarawa injimar leginian. Nara yiramoya, nara malian, nara najan. Yalla. Oh, true. And in English, that means hello. This here is my country, Ngunnawal country. Today we're meeting here on the lands of the Ngunnawal Nation. I give my respect forever to my elders, male and female, of this here country. I sweep the lands here for you to walk on Ngunnawal country, and I embody the rivers of Ngunnawal country, the Murrumbidgee, the Gudgeonby, the Molonglo and the Royal, and I extend the protection of the Malian, our totem, over you today on Ngunnawal country.
I just have to give a hand to that. I think she's amazing. We're with cultural business, you know, I think it's really important, and I'm going to share a bit of my story today. And before I do the Welcome to Country, because unfortunately I can't be a panel speaker, but I'm going to slip a couple of minutes in, and I'd like to make an introduction of my granddaughter Kataya, who couldn't be here today, but is at daycare.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. So that's Kataya Jada Joan Williams, and is Brad, can you just come up here for one moment? I've got to explain this properly because it's cultural stuff. So Dakota is the biological daughter of my oldest brother, William Tompkins. My brother was a single father, also a part of the stolen generation. And that's when I stepped in to play a mother role in a cultural sense. And, you know, we got to rear this beautiful, I got to rear a couple of his children up, and to be a part of that, and that's that kinship and how it's very important. But, you know, I want to talk about intergenerational trauma, and I want to also talk about the social emotional well-being that it takes out on mental health for Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people. I think there needs to be a deeper understanding how far back it actually goes. And, you know, that has continued. My brother was taken away. Now Kataya has been taken away by the system, and there's kinship, there's a lot of mental health and barriers that are exceeding and you know, giving us many sleepless nights. I just wanted to introduce Kataya because I think she's a special little human being, and she's going to be brought up a very special little cultural girl and understand who she is in her role and obligations as a young Ngunnawal woman. I also wanted to bring my brother up to introduce him because he's a very special man to me too, and my daughter. And, you know, for people that do know us, especially all these deadly Canberrians up here in Ngunnawal country, know how tight our family is and how loved it is. Thank you, Bra. Do you want to say anything?
No.
All right. Okay. All right, I'm going to get to the welcome to country, and thank you for letting me slip those little couple of minutes in. You know, first of all, I'd like to make some acknowledgements, and I'd like to, you know, acknowledge that it's Perinatal Mental Health Week. I'd also like to acknowledge the Honourable Emma McBride, Assistant Minister for Suicide Prevention and Mental Health. I'd also like to acknowledge Emma Davison, the ACT Minister for Mental Health, Arabella Gibson, CEO of Gidget, and also my old-time friend here, Dr. Yvonne Luxford, the CEO of the ACT Perinatal Wellbeing. Also, the panel speakers that are going to be talking about their lived experiences. In particular, just met a young Radri brother nephew up the back here, Caden Powell. I'd like to big shout out to you. I'd also like to acknowledge any other Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people here today, and everyone that's here, and acknowledge and honour my elders past, present and future. With that, I say, Yumalandi Yeramura Ngunnawal. Hello, come. I will sweep the lands for you to leave your footprints here on beautiful Ngunnawal country. Najan, the water of the Royal, the Murrumbidgee, the Molonglo, the Gudgeonbee, that will cleanse you of all harm. And Malian is the wedge-tailed eagle, the totem of the Ngunnawal people, and she will guide, protect and oversee you here on your journey on beautiful Ngunnawal country. I say happy Perinatal Mental Health Week. It's a great opportunity, you know, for it to be acknowledged, and that we all have our own week. A great time to have our networks that are around the table with us and utilise them. And a shout out to all parents. I think they're, you know, people with lived experiences need to be acknowledged and honoured this week too. With that, on behalf of myself, other Ngunnawal elders and other Ngunnawal family groups, I welcome you here to the beautiful land of the Ngunnawal. Welcome, 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 and I hope you have a great luncheon. Thank you, Gidget, for respecting Ngunnawal protocols and having myself here today to do the welcome to country. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena, and Maggie as well. Some of what we are going to share today, we should say, including, I know, my own early parenting story, may be difficult for some of you in the room, for some of you to hear today in the room. So, of course, if you need a break, if you need to step out, feel free, and be sure to chat to someone in your village following the event. I'd also like to recognise that we do have 6-month-old Esme here in the room. I do love a perinatal event. Usually there's lots of babies and young children present. I feel very honoured to be your MC today because I am one of the 1 in 5 mothers that has experienced perinatal depression and anxiety, and know all too well the importance of a village when unwell. It's almost a decade ago now for me, but when I reflect on my illness, the memories are really as vivid as if it were yesterday. I had postnatal depression with my second child, my daughter Clementine. It took hold at around 6 to 8 weeks after her birth, a culmination of a myriad of feeding problems, compounded by the same feeding problems that I'd had 2 years earlier with my first daughter, Lola. She had a number of other health-related issues. It got to the point where I was completely uninterested in caring for my 2-year-old. I didn't want to see my 2 stepsons, who I have a great relationship with, and obviously did at the time. Certainly my husband, or anybody else. I was pretty resentful of family and anyone else around me. And while at times I was sleeping, the tears were endless all the time. And I generally felt like I was dragging myself everywhere. and couldn't really function at any capable level. I remember once saying to a friend, you know, why can't I just enjoy my children? There was one particular night, close to sort of probably midnight, I'm not sure, probably a combination of little sleep the night before, far too many glasses of wine to ease the pain, and I was absolutely convinced, and I knew that if I could harm myself physically, that would be the only way to shift that mental pain away. I felt like I needed to experience physical pain, because then maybe I could understand what was going on in my head. And telling this story today, I can actually still picture myself sitting at the kitchen table full of self-loathing, contemplating sort of where to from here and contemplating how I can actually harm myself. For some reason at that very moment, I remember quite clearly Clementine obviously woke up for a feed. The timing was impeccable. Maybe it was a sign. I don't know. I'm still not sure to this day. But it was then that when I was sobbing and once again trying to feed her through the pain that came with that, I said, my husband woke up and he came and said to me, it's time you realised that you're sick, you're not just sad. When I actually sought help and I actually listened to a doctor and saw a psychologist and accepted that I actually needed medication, within a week, my whole outlook on life had changed. It was a new experience to me. I'd never experienced depression or anxiety in my life before, and like many probably thought this shouldn't be happening to me. I began to look forward to spending time with my family and friends. I opened up and told them that I wasn't well. They were all supportive. Some made meals, others helped with washing or came over and played with Lola, took her out to the park or things like that. While I was getting better, I think I learnt to certainly lean into that village, and I know now that I'm one of the first with friends to ensure when they have children that they know that there is a village and that you're there to help in any way you can. And it's having that network that's there to catch you when you fall, and I think that's the reason why we all gather here today. I would also like to recognise anyone else with us today, and I know there's many people here that has lived experience of mental health issues, and specifically those that have lived with experience of perinatal depression and anxiety. It's your voices and experience that help us reduce the stigma that unfortunately still surrounds all mental health issues. Thank you for your courage, and I know to many others that have spoken out, it's not easy, and we appreciate your honesty and your courage. I would also like to acknowledge that some of you have travelled a long way to be here with us today, partners, supporters, and those, as I mentioned, with lived experience that support this wonderful national campaign. So a big thank you. This is our 4th consecutive year that Perinatal Mental Health Week has run. Perinatal Mental Health Week began with only 26 partners, and here today we sit with 56 partners in total. Fantastic. I think it's an amazing effort, and it's certainly not an easy one to achieve. And it is a great testament to the collaboration from the sector for this important campaign. It's wonderful to see perinatal mental health being acknowledged and elevated on the national agenda. We are, of course, so grateful to have the Assistant Minister for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, the Honourable Emma McBride MP, member for Dobell, hosting us all here today. Thank you, Minister, for recognising the importance of perinatal mental health and its impact on the well-being of all families and laying the foundations for lifelong mental well-being. I'd also like to acknowledge other dignitaries who have joined us today. Member for Lindsay, the Shadow Minister for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, the Honourable Melissa McIntosh, Co-Chair of Parliamentary Friends of Child and Adolescent Health and Mental Health. Member for Macarthur, Dr Mike Freelander, ACT Minister for Mental Health, Emma Davidson, and ACT Shadow Minister for Mental Health, Ed Cox. Welcome and thank you. We are privileged to have some of the most senior members of the Department of Health with us today. Dr. Ruth Vine, Deputy Chief Medical Officer for Mental Health. Bronwyn Field, First Assistant Secretary, Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Division. It's excellent to see such focus from the department on perinatal mental health. I know coming as working for a former mental health minister in New South Wales, I know the invaluable and important role that our departments play in providing services and support to all perinatal organisations. To all the 56 perinatal early parenting and mental health organisations who are true partners that bring this amazing campaign to life, thank you for being here today and of course for your continued support. What you do each and every day is what saves families and gives them the tools and support to come through their darkness. The Perinatal Mental Health Week theme this year was co-designed by people who have experienced the struggles of mental ill health, the loved ones that care for them, and Perinatal Mental Health Week partners. The theme for Perinatal Mental Health Week is "We're Here, Uncover Your Village." The national campaign will shine a light on the areas that parents told us they wish they knew when they were going through it, the real experiences of expectant and new parents who have been there in the hard times, so that mum or dad going through it know they are not alone. We know our village replenishes us when we are depleted, strengthens us when we are struggling, and holds us when we feel like we are falling apart. It's also there to tell us that we will be okay. We're here, uncover your village. Perinatal Mental Health Week continues to grow each year. And this year again, we focus on a daily message to help drive awareness of the many experiences related to pregnancy and birth that can have an impact on our well-being. The messages that we will explore for the week ahead include how to access and find your village, when to seek professional help, barriers to reaching out for help, the transition into parenthood, finding the right care for you, taking care of our carers, and of course, taking care of someone you love. Thank you, as I mentioned before, to those courageous parents, some of whom are here today, who have allowed us to share their personal journey through the week to help and encourage other parents to speak up and seek help should they need support. This year, we also have many video messages for members of Parliament and the mental health commissions across Australia. And you can find these on the website, pmhweek.org.au. We are now going to hear from Assistant Minister Emma McBride. Emma McBride was first elected to Parliament in 2016. Growing up in Wyong in New South Wales, Emma worked at Wyong Hospital for nearly a decade. She was formerly the Chief Pharmacist at Wyong Hospital and a Deputy Director of Pharmacy for the Central Coast Local Health District. Emma was also a specialist mental health pharmacist and has been keen to draw on her background and training to help shape future mental health policy. If only we had more politicians with that background and experience. Please welcome the Honourable Emma McBride, Assistant Minister for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention.
Thank you, Bridget, for that very generous introduction. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and to pay my respects to Elders past, present and emerging, and to extend that respect to First Nations people who are with us today. Thank you very much to Serena and Maddie for your welcome and the particular emphasis on the social and emotional well-being of First Nations people and families and the intergenerational impact. It's something that we are committed as a government to work alongside you to try to improve. I also want to acknowledge anybody here today with a lived or living experience of mental ill health and those who care for and about them, and to thank you for your generous and ongoing contribution to improving the policies and programs all around the country that mean there's better access to support and care. There are so many people here today. I understand that 56 organisations have now come together in the 4th year of this really important event. But to Arabella Gibson, the CEO of the Gidget Foundation, for your leadership on bringing this together today, to Yvonne Luxford and Viv Kassane from the Perinatal Wellbeing Centre and Peachtree for being partners and collaborating in this event today. And to all of those who are here today from right around Australia, it makes people aware that you're here, that they have a village wherever they are. And a special thank you to everyone here today who is sharing their own lived or living experience, including Bridget. It's through your honesty and your bravery that other people know that there is support and that they know where to find it. Together, you are making a real difference to the lives of expectant and new parents right around the country. And as has been mentioned, Perinatal Mental Health Week officially began 4 years ago here in Canberra and represents our shared commitment to the mental health and wellbeing of expectant and new parents. And there could be no better theme this year, which I understand from Arabella was come to by listening to people. We're here, uncover your village. The transition to new parenthood can be tough. And as a specialist mental health pharmacist who worked in acute adult inpatient units, I've seen the direct impact firsthand on individuals, on families, and on communities. Perinatal Mental Health Week is about raising awareness so new and expectant parents know that they're not alone, that even though they might feel isolated, that support is available. And it's about uncovering their village. The facts are stark. Almost 100,000 Australians are affected by perinatal depression and anxiety each and every year. Up to 1 in 5 women and up to 1 in 10 men. And I've met one of our panel members who is going to be speaking, Caden, who's going to be speaking about his own experience on that later today. It's so important that we now have non-birthing parents who are part of this important national discourse. But up to 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men will experience anxiety and or depression in the perinatal period. And I've learnt from a parent of multiples today, from Celia, that these figures are higher for parents of multiples. That it's 5 times more likely to experience perinatal depression if you're a parent of multiples, and 9 times more likely to experience what was described to me as disabling exhaustion, which is effectively just falling asleep while standing up. And I'm sure that's something that many people in this room have experienced. And it doesn't just impact parents. It can have serious impacts on the infant, their emotional and social well-being, their physical and cognitive development, which is why we're all here together to support new and expecting parents and their families. That's why the government has a strong focus through our National Children's Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy on helping parents with their own mental health to support the wellbeing of their children and families. And under the Perinatal Mental Health and Wellbeing Program, we're pleased to support the National Perinatal Mental Health Services, boosting training and education and providing support to parents and families experiencing distress after miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant death. And I'm very pleased as we're here today, hosted by the Gidget Foundation, for the support that we've provided, $26 million to deliver a national network of 12 perinatal mental health and wellbeing centres, which will make an incredible difference to new and expectant parents right around the country. These centres will provide targeted, appropriate mental health support to expectant and new parents. And while I believe today shows that we're making progress, when it comes to perinatal mental health and wellbeing, that we're reducing stigma, that we're encouraging help seeking, I think everyone here today acknowledges, and the organisations that you represent, that there is much more to do to make sure that every person can access the care and support that they need at the right time, in the right place, in a way that meets their needs. To make sure that everybody knows that help is available, to raise awareness and to encourage help seeking. Finally, I'd just like to thank again all of the organisations that have come together here today for your advocacy, for your support, and most importantly, for your care. You're part of the village and we're here to help you uncover it. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Minister. It's wonderful to hear of your drive to support parents across the country and to hear that supporting families is a priority for what is such a foundational time in mental health development. Now we have a very special panel conversation with 5 parents who, like me, have faced some challenges with the transition to parenthood. I'm going to introduce them, and if they could come up here as I'm introducing them. Celia Anderson-Cook, Andrea Dixon. Andrea's here with Esme, who's 6 months old, and I told her to bring Esme up. Only because if Esme starts crying, then I get to have a cuddle. Caden Powell, Matthew McConnell, and Kate Brow. It's a great mix of very capable parents here representing different backgrounds and challenges during their early parenthood journey. While we're doing this, please, everyone, if you'd like to start eating underway, but just no talking. And try to keep your cutlery down, noise to a minimum. Look, let's get this panel. You've all got your microphones, hopefully they're on. I think one of the things keeping in line today, if you could, I want to ask you if you could end this sentence for me that says, I wish. I was thinking about this and I thought, I wish someone had told me how hard parenting would be. And then I thought, well, I can't really say that because people did tell me it would be hard, but of course I just didn't believe it. It's quite not often until you go through these things that you really believe it. So I suppose in line with today, I'd say I wish that I had told people that I was struggling much earlier than I did. Let's throw to the panel. Lucky you. You can go first, Matthew.
Didn't want to be the one. Hello, everyone. I'm Matt. If there was one thing I'd say, I wish that I know now. I wish that what I know now, I knew 18 months ago. Probably one of the hardest things is not knowing what's out there, not knowing what supports there are, and it takes time to find what you need. So now I'm confident that there is the supports out there, but in the initial days when I needed them, I didn't know they were there. So I wish that what I knew now, I knew 18 months ago.
Yeah, a very common wish, and we're going to come back in a minute and hear everyone's story. Celia, I wish. How did you end that sentence?
Oh, I totally agree with you. I feel the same way. I wish that I didn't have to leave my babies at the hospital for 3 weeks, even though I know that there was no other way it could happen. That was such a hard time for me. And then I just wish that I had more support, more hands-on.
Yeah.
I wish that, so many things. I wish that I knew that babies didn't follow books for a start, but also that it's not weak to seek support. And I think that was the biggest thing that held me back. And I also didn't have a huge thing that happened, a specific moment that happened. And so I thought that I wasn't worthy of that care. So for me, it's any level of anxiety, depression, whatever it is that you're going through is worth getting that support.
I wish for more wishes because I feel like we've got a lot of work to do. I come from the experience of a prenatal diagnosis, and that area is definitely one that is forgotten. And yeah, I wish there was more support out there for families, funding for organisations to support those families, and training for healthcare professionals.
I'd like to start off by just acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land. I really appreciate that welcome as well. So in my language, Yama, Yinjiamara, Caden Wadri, I'd like to acknowledge past, present and emerging. And thank you for having me up here and greeting me. My wish for sure would be around further support, having our bubs back with their family systems, more knowledge and community connections, and more support and around more information, moving forward together as a unit and as one.
Caden, while you've got the microphone, would you mind sharing a little of your story with us, as well as the biggest emotional wellbeing challenges of being a parent?
Yeah, for sure. So, a part of my story, I want to acknowledge initially that I'm quite anxious up here. I come from a background of mental health myself, around suicide, ideations and suicide attempts, drug and alcohol space as well, and lived experience to then go on to change my own life. So a part of this new space also, I was raised by a single mother, a beautiful woman, and my grandmother who raised me. So I didn't necessarily have too many male role models to show me what it looked like to be like a man, in a sense. So coming into the space of some of the things that I found initially hard as a new father, having the expectations of I needed to be a certain way. So what that looked like for me was running a job, business, and then also working to other jobs, and then having, I suppose, the pressure or the expectations and around I had to look a certain way to provide for my family, which kind of left me unstuck. And for me to sort of bring that up and talk to mum around that, I felt a lot of shame and a lot of guilt that I was feeling that way, just due to the fact that mum just went through an experience where I seen her physically, and what she shared, her body go through a lot of trauma. So for me to think that my mental health, my well-being, I didn't want to put extra pressure on top of her through my sort of experiences. And for me, was one of those things of being raised from the country. You just suck it up as a man, and you don't talk about what's actually going on for you, which for me took me down a path where I actually needed support and help. So yeah.
And do you have a village around you? Are they easy to find?
I do have a village, and I'm always looking and open for those opportunities. And I think a part of that also for me, it's about being honest and being truthful and sharing my internal world and what's actually going on for me, which allows other people hopefully to come into that space. And I think that's where the real sort of conversations happen, and that's sort of where I look for my village, is around those experiences and those communications as well. All of us trying to navigate this world as best as we can, and learning and sharing. And for me, that ties in with my old people and those old ways around what I can learn from everyone, and no greater than anyone else. And I'm just on this journey to try to get through it. Yeah.
Andrea, I can see Esme jumping around. Would you mind sharing your story?
So Esme is my second living child. I have a 3-year-old at home. Prior to having Esme, it took us 7 years to conceive our first living child. We had been through a number of rounds of fertility treatments and one miscarriage, and then I spontaneously fell pregnant whilst on a break from IVF, only to discover at our anatomy scan that my son had was diagnosed with a congenital anomaly condition. He was deemed not compatible with life. He had major structural abnormalities, so he had some organs outside of his body. He had a 90-degree bend in his spine. And we were, I guess, not presented a lot of options. And now I look back on it and I believe we probably weren't given informed consent in the way we should have been around that. It was a very rushed, there was lots of pressure to get through the diagnosis, to get through the decision-making process. And that decision-making process was actually done even before the clinical test results came back. And so that has definitely impacted my journey and my grief journey. and coming to terms with that, because it's something that I have to live with for the rest of my life. But we did make the decision at the time to compassionately let go of our child, which is referred to as a termination for medical reasons nowadays, something I had never heard of. Didn't even realise that that sort of thing happened, I guess, when I went through it, and there was just no support systems. Lots of barriers to seeking support, and yeah, that's...
And how did that go on, that grief and trauma? Did that have an impact on you then when you had your other two children?
So from my perspective, I think the peak came for me about 6 to 9 months after we had lost Theodore. That was the real low point, I guess. And I experienced depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and just really didn't even know where to turn. And I felt even within the loss community, because we had made a decision that I didn't fit there. So I really didn't know where to go. And then again, the process of trying to conceive again, and the, I guess, extreme anxiety around, it was obviously joyful to fall pregnant again and absolutely terrifying. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to come back, but I'd just like to hear, Kate, would you also mind sharing a little of your story and your background?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to acknowledge I'm so sorry that both of you have been through that. It's a lot to go through, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm a mother of 3 daughters, 6, 3 and 1, and I'm actually a rural mum. So I live 2 hours south of here, in a place called Bombala, and my husband is a farmer. And for those of you who don't know what that means I do a lot of solo parenting. It means that it's a 24/7 job. He's gone sometimes before the kids wake up, and he's often working late at night in the office. When I had my first baby, I was a professional. I worked for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. I was a perfectionist. I thought that I was going to nail motherhood, and motherhood nailed me, unfortunately. I was very anxious. I had sleeping issues, feeding issues, all of the kind of standard things I think that people have. But the support services that I tried to access kept telling me that I wasn't presenting with anything. I was just dealing with a tough situation and I'd get through it. And I didn't get the help that I needed with my first baby. And to be very honest, I hated that first year. Everything was irritating, everything bothered me. I'm sure I had postnatal anxiety, but it was undiagnosed. And I also had a lot of rage as well and resentment towards my partner. I then went on to have a miscarriage about 2 years after my first one was born, and that really triggered a whole another set of emotions. Again, being a farmer's wife, you're kind of told like that happens, it's natural, it wasn't meant to be. I tried to put that in a nice little box and a bow and push it away, but it just kept coming up for me. And so I started seeking mental health support for that. And that, I guess, felt like a particular trauma that you could actually seek help for. It wasn't a weak thing to do, like I'd been through something. And I guess that was the difference between my first baby and, this experience. Having got to a good enough point, we started trying again, and I fell pregnant with my second baby. We were in the middle of bushfires, a drought, and I ended up having a 5-week early premature baby for my second, which is totally unfair because everyone tells you the second's so much easier, you've got this, it's, you're going to be so confident. But no, I was stuck in Canberra with our property, one of our properties, being threatened by bushfires. My husband was an anxious wreck. He's got diagnosed anxiety and wasn't coping either. But it was the first time as well that I'd been given really great access to care. I had a psychologist in my room the day after the baby was born. They came every single day that I was in Canberra Hospital. My husband was seeing a social worker. I was like, this is amazing. This is what you should get. And then I went home and had nothing. And I think it was maybe 3 months later that postnatal rage started coming up for me. And that's when I started seeing the Gidget Foundation. And that helped me, I guess, get to the point where I could have a third baby and feel really confident and happy with that.
Good to hear. And Celia, the Minister, was talking before about multiple children. You have a number of children. What's sharing a little of your story?
I have an aggressive amount of children. I have 4 in total. So it's just so moving, all of your stories. So yeah, really moved by that. I had a 18-month-old and then fell pregnant again, had no inkling of, that it would be multiples. Went to the ultrasound and I was going to go by myself because it was COVID times. But luckily my partner came with me. He's actually here today as well. It was really good that he was in the room because the ultrasound technician seemed very out of her depth and just sort of was, when they go quiet and you're just like, oh my God, what is it? Tell me. And she was just like, how did you conceive? And I was like, that's such a weird question to ask. Like, do you want to know like the date? I don't know. It was natural. And she's like, okay, I'll tell you why, because so here we go. I can see 1 here. And I was like, great. I can see 2 here. And we both looked at each other like, oh my God, twins. And then I could see a 3rd one here. And then I was like, oh my God, stop counting, please. Please tell me there's no more. And there wasn't, there was just 3 and Jordan was laughing, I don't know, stress response. I was like this. And the moment that you never can prepare for finding out you're having triplets, so many thoughts were going through my head. I didn't know how I was going to carry 3 babies in my body. We were living in a 2-bedroom house. We had just bought a new car the year before or whatever, that was 5-seater. We're about to have 6 in our family. We didn't know how we were going to afford it, whether we had to move. How do you even do triplets? It's not like you go to Baby Bunting and get a pram, like there's just nothing there. Did
you find that, I think there's often a perception from people that, if you have triplets, you'll get lots of help. But,
there's this perception, and it's not parents of triplets saying that. It's other people. Because I felt that way too when I found out. I was like, okay, well, the village just appears now. Like everyone just pops up and they're like, welcome to having triplets. There were moments where I was like crying the babies had been born, and I was crying to a social worker like, I'm so exhausted. I can't do this. Surely there's something to support me. And like to be told there wasn't was just such a slap in the face. And I just felt like I needed more hands-on support. I know that I'm a better mum when I have a break, when I get to go outside, go meet my friends, or like actually have a decent night's sleep. And you're deprived of so much as a parent, and as a parent of triplets and a toddler, that like in any other context of life, if you would, put in that situation where you're not sleeping, you're around the clock working as a mum, and it would be shocking. But like as a parent, it's like, oh, well, that's just what having triplets is like. It's like, without that support, it's so hard to provide the care that you want to give to your children. We're all really well-minded parents who want to provide the best to our children, and we need more support.
I think we all forget that sleep deprivation is actually a form of torture. And Matt, you shared a little bit before. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so I'm a father of 3. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, Edie. I've got a 5-month-old son, Noah. And I've also got a daughter, Ren, who passed away when she was 8 days old. She'd be 19 months old tomorrow. So Ren, it was a pretty normal pregnancy for my wife and I. You know, we had our first bub and it was all good. First baby, you know, easy done. Second one come along. Thought this is going to be just like last one. No worries at all. We got to 38 weeks. We hadn't had an issue at all. We went into hospital just to have a bit of a checkup. My wife had a few pains in her side. It was on Good Friday last year. Ren wasn't playing the game. We didn't know if we were having a boy or girl. She didn't know. We didn't know. We wanted a surprise. We thought that'd be the best thing. Put the Dopplers on, and she just wasn't doing the right thing. So they thought, well, she's 38 weeks. Edie was born at 37. Let's go for it. Let's induce now. So we did. There was no inkling that anything was possibly going to go wrong until about, it was 23 past 11 on Good Friday. Now, living in a regional area, unfortunately, our healthcare system isn't like it is in a city. My wife had a cord prolapse, so our daughter needed to be born as quick as possible. Being a Good Friday as a public holiday, we were rushed to theatre. The lights were off. There's no anaesthetist there, the anaesthetist on call. So we had to wait for theatre, we had to wait for the anaesthetist to come in. About 35 minutes later, our daughter was born, resuscitated. Thank God. I thought she'd made it. I thought, beauty, you know, she's okay. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, we got asked by the head paediatrician, who is a friend of my wife's. My wife's a midwife. We were at her hospital where Ren was born. They asked if we wanted to palliate in the hospital, or do we want to give her a chance and we'll go to the kids. So this is at 3 o'clock in the morning. Our daughter's 3 hours old, and that's what we're faced with. So at 6 in the morning, she was loaded up onto Piper, an aeroplane, flown to the Royal Children's. Now, we were lucky enough to get 7 days with our daughter. I'd do anything to get them 7 days back. They were some of the best days of my life. I got pink nails. We painted her nails pink when she was 2 days old, and I haven't stopped painting my nails since. I don't know when I'll ever stop painting my nails pink. It's good for starting a conversation, and that's what I like to do, because dads don't talk about losing children. They don't talk about miscarriages. They don't talk about terminations for medical reasons. They don't talk about stillbirth, and they don't talk about infant loss or SIDS. I've spent 18 months looking for a community. And personally, I felt that I had to find my own and build my own. So that's what I've done. I don't stop in reaching out to dads and charities and other people, because it's hard. There's no one-stop shop for a dad to go, all right, here's where you need to go. You look at this place. It takes a lot of work being a dad. Ren is one of the best things that's ever happened in my life. She was perfect. She always will be perfect in every way. And she's opened a lot of doors for me too. My life's completely different now, in a better way. We've since gone on to have a baby boy. He's 5 months old now. But one of the hardest things I found as a dad is I never once spoke to another dad about what it was like to support my partner through that next pregnancy. Or how do I support myself? I didn't know. So lucky enough to, release a podcast with a guy in the room this week. We are talking about pregnancy after loss for dads. So hopefully another dad might be able to listen to that and see what helped me. It might help them, it might not. Yeah, that's a bit what I do. It is hard for a dad to try and find connection. And it is so important, because once you've got connection, you only need 1 or 2 or 3 others. That's all you need. Your village doesn't need to be huge. It just needs to be strong.
Matt, thank you. And please don't ever stop painting your nails pink. Is that your, do you now see that sort of podcast and those other dads as your village? You know?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I've got, it's not just mates in Australia now. I've got mates in the United Kingdom. I've got mates, in Brisbane, in Melbourne, where I'm from. I don't actually have any close mates where I live. I don't know a lot of guys where I live that have been through the same thing, which is really hard, because I do know a lot of mums that have been through something, yet a conversation that I might have with the partners is really short. So yeah, it is hard. I acknowledge how hard it is for mum, but also know how hard it is for dad as well. And that's why I'm sitting here speaking today.
Thank you. Well, we know that 1 in 10 dads do suffer from perinatal depression and anxiety, and I think particularly Matt, you and Caden both sharing your stories is really vital to other dads, even if they're not here, or those watching online. I think just briefly, I think they're all individual stories. There's elements of every story that intertwine, and there'll be many people here that will know others that have been through the same sorts of issues, trauma after pregnancy, during, before. What words or insights, I suppose, would you share with any expectant or new parents who are struggling with their emotional well-being? It's quite, obviously, I get a very large question, but I think it sort of goes back to that I wish. But if you had sort of any advice, what would it be? Caden, we'll go back to you.
For me, it'd be to reach out and seek help. Don't let it be too late when you can start to identify some signs that, for me, were unusual in terms of my behaviour, to start to talk about that. Initially it was quite hard talking about that, as Matt mentioned, just having the support systems up around where I was sort of living and being off country as well. My family weren't around, so for me, it was around initially identifying some of those things. I remember when my partner at the time, she was in hospital and about to have Bub, and I remember speaking to Mum, and I just, the simple signs for me were, Mum, I just hope I'm good enough for him, and that sort of stems back to some of the stuff, my underlying, the inner child, and how then that's progressed, those sort of conversations internally. And, for me, like I said, it's about identifying and looking after my well-being, and talking about that, especially as a man, talking about, what's actually going on for me. And, that it isn't weak to speak as well. Those conversations need to be had. The rate of suicide as well in men is, through the roofs. So, and then also how, one of the things that helped me also was SMS for dads. It was a system that I would get cues while Mum was pregnant, after, and it just gave me little cues. I mean, I was a new expecting father. This is the first time, and I was blessed with a little boy, and his name's Junji Amada. So just getting those little cues for me just reassured me that, okay, righto, Dad's on the right step. Okay, let's support Mum a bit more in around this space. Okay, and these are some of the things when I didn't have those supports, like SMS for Dads, really was one of those things that just reminded me and just gave me, okay, righto. It's okay if I'm feeling this way. It's normal that I'm feeling this way, and having the support of the deadly dads as well was a great thing for me to reach out with, and people like Richard and Dave Edwards were definitely something for me that really helped through that process.
Thank you. Andrea, any advice? What advice would you give?
Definitely be brave enough to reach out for support, because even if you don't land in one, in the right fit the first time, keep trying, because there are communities and support systems out there, and there are people who are doing amazing work in trying to build support systems as well for others. But unfortunately, another thing would be is that self-advocacy. You have to fight for it sometimes, and that sucks because you really just want the village to swoop in, but occasionally, depending on your circumstances, there are access to barriers, and yeah, you unfortunately have to fight for it sometimes till you land in the right place.
Kate,
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Just keep trying to find the right fit for you. Don't give up after one try. But I think particularly for rural parents, finding your village is really important. A lot of my fellow rural mums have moved onto the land. They're not from that area, so they're away from their families. They don't have those kind of connections in the local town, and that was certainly my experience. Mine were also in Victoria, so they were cut off by the border when Frankie was born premature. So that was another thing. So what I found helped really with that kind of support network was the Gidget Foundation obviously were really helpful in that professional clinical experience, but I also needed a village, and we know that around 50% of rural mums don't have access to a physical mothers group. So what we do at Motherland, the organisation I work with, is provide an online rural mothers group for those women that don't have access. And also as a rural mum, it can be really hard to go into a town that you're not from and, you know, maybe be a little bit resentful about your partner or your mother-in-law or whoever it is that is not giving you the support you need. And so having a group of online mums based all over Australia that are going through the same thing has been an incredible support for me.
Yeah. Celia, any insights?
Yeah, I'd tell other mums, especially of multiples, never feel guilty for wanting to find time to have time for yourself, and just delete mum guilt altogether. If I could do that, Control Alt Delete. It's so important to put yourself first. You're responsible for, you know, in my case, multiple children, and you need to look after yourself. You need to do what you need to do, get exercise, talk to your friends, do what makes you feel good so that you can be the best mum that you want to be for your kids. That's what I would tell another mum, and just, yeah, exactly what you said, reach out for support and find your people that are going to say supportive things.
And Matt, what words or insights would you like to share with someone who might be going through or about to go through something that you've been through?
Really look after yourself. Be kind to yourself. Only do things that make you happy. I found that a big one. I enjoyed exercise, running, gym, things, you know, they're more male orientated maybe. Probably the best one I did was going swimming in a cold ocean all through winter as well, just to reset. Every time I felt average, I'd go to the beach, I'd jump in for 5 minutes, freeze, jump out, and I felt good. Some simple little things. It doesn't have to be counselling or psychologists, as much as I have had 2 counsellors and a psychologist for the last 18 months. I find that the things that I can do on my own also help me the most. Just resetting, taking time to yourself, which is why running's quite fun. Yeah, look after yourself and those close to you, and try not to look after those not in your, you know, you've got to look after yourself first.
Absolutely. Look, thank you so much. I know I speak for everyone here for sharing your stories. It's a lot easier said than done to share your stories of struggle and mental illness. And I think you are brave and you show courage, and your children are very lucky to have you in their lives. So thank you. And also thank you, of course, to all the organisations that nominated these exceptional parents to represent this important campaign. I'll now stop talking and give you a chance to enjoy something to eat. I think please keep please everyone keep eating. I just wanted to I suppose wrap up today's event and this week. Of course, you can help us raise awareness by sharing the daily messages I spoke about earlier. I can't rattle them off the top of my head again. The messages and content via, of course, your social channels, creating content relevant for your organisation, tagging everyone at, tagging us here at PMH Week and hashtag PMH Week 2023. And of course, letting all expectant and new parents know that we're here, Uncover Your Village. So thank you again for being a part of this important campaign and launch event. It's great to connect in person as a sector. It's great to meet so many other people with lived experience, parents who have taken the time out, babies who have made special appearances. And I think it's great to take a moment to step back and appreciate all the work that we do for expectants and new parents right across Australia. Now we have a bit of time. I think there's 20 minutes or so to network. So please, when you finish lunch, you can get up and say hello to the colleagues. Of course, there's the photo wall down the back. I'm just going to leave you with some of those parents that have tapped into their village, some of the organisations here today to help them on their parenting journey. Hope you enjoy.
I vividly remember thinking that the emotional turmoil that I was going through and the physical challenges that I was facing and the mental load of being a new mum, that there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I remember that moment at 6 weeks in, and it was a dark and very hopeless place to find myself.
So my village when I was recovering from postnatal depression was definitely my husband, my parents, my in-laws, and my brother and my sister.
I found this village at a support group that I went to in my darkest moment.
Online Rural Mothers Group, a group of supportive rural mums that live all over Australia in a similar situation to me, raising children on the land. I couldn't have done it without them.
My family, my husband and parents in particular, my GP and my psychologist.
As the mother of a severe postnatal depression sufferer, was my immediate family and the internet. Then came general hospital staff and ultimately our psychiatrist and specialised PND nursing staff.
It was my mum and my mother-in-law that flew to our remote town in northern Western Australia to really give me space.
For older sisters, my husband who kept our little family running, and then my mum who I'm quite close with. She was a great support as well.
To help me with those practical things I was finding extremely overwhelming, and really helping decrease my mental load and the stresses that were compounding.
Found a tribe that I could be open with. I could be real and raw with what was happening in my life and how I felt as a mom.
My village provided hands-on support with looking after Indy and also provided a space where I could share what I was going through and connect with other people that were further on in their healing journey of PMDA. So it gave me hope that I had a brighter future ahead.
Having that village around me made me feel like I could do this and that there was hope, because without them, I felt terribly alone. My advice for anyone that wants to support a loved one going through this would be to set up the support networks now, set them up early.
Recognising the signs early, getting help immediately.
We live in a digital world where help is literally at our fingertips. So it might just start off with a Google search with places that can help you.
If you can really just be that shoulder, that hand to hold for that person, all they want to know is that they have someone by their side, someone who has their back. I think that would be the absolute best thing that you could do.
The support was like candles being lit in the tunnel that guided me to be able to make it out to the other side. And for me, support is the gift of hope. And it's because of this that I'm able to now thrive and not just continue to survive day in and day out.